Every trucker has a story. Some talk about long nights, strange lights in the sky, or shadows on the side of the road. But there's one story, one I heard from a man that still keeps me up at night. It's about a trucker who should have kept driving, but didn't. A long stretch of empty highway winds through the heart of nowhere, the kind of place where even the stars feel too far away. The only sounds are the low growl of the semi's engine and the occasional thud of tires over worn asphalt. The trucker, a man in his late 50s with deep lines etched in his face, grips the steering wheel loosely, eyes heavy but alert. The hum of the road has become a second heartbeat to him. His cab is cluttered with fast food wrappers, a thermos of cold coffee, and a faded photograph of a woman smiling, his late wife. A well-worn CB radio crackles softly with static, a faint reminder of life out there in the darkness. But tonight, it's silent, too silent. The trucker flicks on the radio, skipping past country songs and static-laced chatter until he finds nothing, just dead air. He lets out a long breath, more of a sigh than anything, and drums his fingers against the steering wheel. His mind wanders. He thinks about her, about the life they built before it all crumbled. He thinks about the roads he's traveled since, chasing a peace he knows he'll never really find. It's a long stretch of empty highway, no towns, no exits, just an endless two-lane road cutting through the darkness. The driver never picked up hitchhikers, not once in 20 years on the road. But that night, he stopped, and he didn't know why. Maybe it was the way the man stood there, still, calm, like he belonged to the darkness. Or maybe it was something deeper. Guilt? Loneliness? A pull he didn't understand, but couldn't ignore. He spots the figure through the windshield, a lone silhouette standing at the roadside, barely illuminated by the truck's high beams. The hitchhiker doesn't wave. He doesn't flinch. He just stands there, like he's been waiting. The trucker hesitates. His fingers hover over the turn signal lever, a muscle memory he hasn't used for anyone but himself in years. Something cold curls in his gut. He signals. The rig slows, brakes hissing as it comes to a stop a few yards ahead of the hitchhiker. For a moment, there's a silence. Just the creak of the cooling engine. The trucker glances in the mirror. The figure hasn't moved. Then, slow and steady, the hitchhiker approaches, boots crunching gravel. The trucker feels his heart race. Primal warning. But he pushes it down. He reaches over, unlocks the passenger door, and it creaks open. The hitchhiker climbs in without a word. His face is lined, shadowed by the brim of an old, wide hat. His suit is old-fashioned, threadbare in places, but clean. The only sound is the soft thud as he settles into the seat and closes the door behind him. The trucker clears his throat, trying to shake the chill creeping up his spine. He tries to break the tension.
So, where you headed?
Nothing. The trucker glances at the hitchhiker, tension thick in the air. The cab hums with the engine's deep growl, headlights cutting through the endless black road ahead. The hitchhiker sits still, too still, his wide-brim hat casting a shadow over his face. Minutes pass in heavy silence. The trucker shifts in his seat, the weight of the quiet pressing in. He tries to break it once again.
Not much of a talker, huh?
The hitchhiker doesn't respond, just stares straight ahead, his face unreadable. The trucker drums his fingers on the wheel, unease crawling under his skin.
You know, most folks at least say thanks before hitching a ride.
Still, nothing. The trucker's throat feels dry. He glances again. There's something off about this guy. The way he doesn't blink, doesn't move. It's like he's barely there at all. The trucker starts wondering why he picked this guy up in the first place. Was it instinct? Pity? Guilt gnaws at him. The kind that's been buried deep. The kind that surfaces at the worst time. Then, finally, the hitchhiker speaks. his voice low and rough, like sandpaper scraping glass.
Same place as you.
The trucker stiffens. That wasn't the answer he expected.
That's cryptic. Most folks also got a destination.
Not everyone. Some of us are just passing through.
The trucker feels the hair on his arms rise. His knuckles tighten on the wheel. Every instinct screams at him to pull over and tell this guy to get out. But he doesn't. Instead, he flicks his eyes to the CB radio, crackling softly in the background. And then, as if the hitchhiker knew what he was thinking, what he was looking at, his hands move, slow and deliberate, reaching for the receiver. His fingers graze it, and the static sharpens into clarity.
Breaker, breaker. Any night drivers out there? Got a story for you. One about a man who's been running from something for a long time.
The trucker's heart lurches. He knows. He knows the hitchhiker isn't talking about just anyone. He's talking about him.
What the hell are you doing?
Telling the truth. And now, everyone's gonna hear it.
The hitchhiker's voice, now crackling through every trucker's radio, cuts through the static like an old forgotten frequency.
You've done good things, you know. You married your high school sweetheart. Your first and only love. You built a life together. Simple, but full of happiness. When she passed, you didn't crumble. You kept going. Took to the road. Became a trucker to keep your mind busy. But deep down, you've been driving to escape the silence she left behind. You helped people along the way. Saved that girl stranded near Tulsa. Gave that broke kid your last $20 at a gas station. You've never had kids, though you wanted them. But something deep inside, something dark, told you that you didn't deserve them. And you never told anyone that, did you?
The trucker grips the wheel tighter. How does this man know that? He glances at the CB uneasily, knowing others are listening, trying to keep his voice steady.
You must listen to a lot of CB chatter.
No, I listen to you. I've always been listening.
Silence fills the cab. Only the hum of the engine, or the distant howl of the wind, can be heard.
But you've done bad things too.
The trucker's breath catches in his throat. He doesn't respond.
You know which one I mean. The one that still wakes you up at night. The one buried off that old service road. He was just a man in the wrong place at the wrong time. He didn't deserve that, did he?
The trucker's knuckles go white on the wheel. He doesn't say a word. The road stretches endlessly ahead, black and silent. Again, the trucker thinks he should kick this man out, but there's something in his voice, something that freezes him in place. The weight of years presses on him, the memory of that night, the body, the blood, the silence after. He swallows hard. His throat feels dry.
I didn't mean to kill him. It just happened. I panicked. I ran.
Tell them how it happened.
The trucker hesitates, then the words come spilling out.
It was late. A gas station out in the middle of nowhere. I was tired, barely keeping my eyes open. He came up asking for a ride. Harmless enough. We were just talking. Then he got weird. Started digging through his bag. I thought he was pulling a weapon. I freaked out. There was a tire iron in the cab. I swung first, hit him in the head.
The CB crackles with silence. Truckers listening in.
He wasn't armed. He was pulling out a photo. A damn photo of his kid. He was heading home. I buried him in the brush off a back road. Didn't even check if he was still breathing. I just ran.
And you never told a soul. Never gave him a name. Never let his family bury him.
The trucker's hands tremble on the wheel. The hitchhiker still holds the receiver, his voice steady, now carrying across the vast highway network like a sermon, a ghostly preacher telling the truth to all who listen.
But tonight, I'm giving you a choice. Call the cops. Tell them where he is. Confess. Do the right thing before it's too late.
The trucker's heart pounds. His fingers reach for the phone. He dials. The line rings. The call echoes over the CB, now part of the eerie broadcast every trucker is hearing in real time. The dispatcher answers.
911, what's your emergency?
The trucker exhales, and then, in a voice he can barely recognize as his own, he tells them everything. The trucker hangs up. His heart is still racing. But for the first time in years, the weight on his chest eases. He glances over at the hitchhiker. The hitchhiker still holds the receiver, his voice now layered, as if multiple voices are speaking over each other. A final spectral sign-off from a station that never existed.
That was the right thing to do. It'll let him rest, but it won't save you.
The trucker's stomach drops.
What?
Ever wonder why you stopped? Was it instinct? Was it fear? Or maybe it was that guilt you've been carrying for years, clawing its way out, begging to be noticed. But here's the thing. You didn't really have a choice. I was always going to make you stop. Not for your sake. Not to save you. But to give someone else what you stole. Closure.
The trucker's grip tightens on the wheel, the weight of the words sinking in. The trucker sighs, all hope lost.
Now your road ends here.
Before the trucker can react, his headlights catch something massive in the darkness. A jackknife semi blocking the road. He slams on the brakes, tires screech, metal groans. The truck tips, spinning, crashing. They found his truck totaled on Route 19. There was only one body, and he didn't make it. But everyone on the road that night, they heard his story. Every trucker that night became witness to a man's atonement and his final end. A story told by a voice that wasn't meant to exist, telling a story that had already ended before the crash ever happened. Recounting the driver's life, his good deeds, his regrets. Every trucker tuned in that night heard it all, like a final eulogy rolling through the airwaves. As for the trucker's victim, the police followed instructions from the call, and they found the body, just where he said it would be. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was fate, or maybe something out there was giving him one last chance. Now, truckers whisper about it, a ghost story told through static and signal waves, a tale of a man, just like you and me, who met death face to face. A warning passed between them. Keep your eyes on the road and don't stray. Death is always watching, and if it's your time, you might just find him waiting for you. And when he tells your story, that means your road is about to end. That concludes this episode of It's True. If you enjoyed this tale, or others, please be sure to like and subscribe. Every week we post a new episode of It's True. Until next time, it's true if you believe it.